This video that you're about to see is one that focuses on three major elements of reinforcing our uh, position as patriots in the United States. Many of us and many out there don't know who their family is. They have not researched who their family is or what they have done, and don't know the history of that. So as a result of that, you know nothing about the contribution of your family to this country's uh, success. Your challenge is to learn. I'm presenting three elements that will help you better understand. While some of this is already attached in ancestry, any genealogical work, the key thing for you is this. We are rooted in war, rooted in war. We are rooted in Christian faith. We are also, for the most part, those same warriors are rooted in being Freemasons. Now, this is not an advertisement for anything particularly, but it is one to remind you that if you want to know more about your family, you need to know something about these three elements. You may be surprised. So let's begin. Hello, this is Jim Phillips with Remember Veteran Grave Markers. I want to talk to you about the importance of belonging. Now, we all belong to something. But one of the things that we are experiencing in the United States, at least, is a loss of historical belonging. That meaning of we don't know who we are. We haven't explored our roots. And that, for us as Americans, when we are formed by the ideas and ideals of the Constitution, those formative actions are necessary for our citizenship. So belonging becomes important. As you probably are aware, as Americans, we started out with the revolution. We were on a war footing from the beginning. We didn't like what was happening. From the revolution, we went into the War of 1812. Now, in between War of 1812 and the revolution, there were other skirmishes going on in the Indian territories. But nevertheless, the next big one is the War of 1812. That becomes important. And a lot of things came out of that, particularly the Star-Spangled Banner. Now we go into the the off years. When I say off, it's just basically they're not major stuff, but they are big. For example, the next one is the Seminole Wars. Now, the Seminole Wars are absolutely interesting because the Seminole people never surrendered, and we never won. So that war that went on from 1817 to 1858 was one that was put to bed. So it's kind of an interesting one. But we are fighting again. During that time as well, we had the war in Mexico, the Mexican-American War. Now, the Mexican-American War really produced some of the great generals that we had in the Civil War, both Confederate and Union. Fought in Mexico all the way up to the Mexican capital. So it's important because that you have a lot of relationships forged. So the first point here is that our relationship to our country is rooted in patriotism and in fighting for it. So a lot of people fought for it. In fact, many people will, during the Civil War, will point to the fact that they had Revolutionary War patriot family members, both North and South, because while the North won, the Union did win, the Confederates also had their patriots, and some of those patriots are the very same ones that we have, or at least the North have. I say we, more like because I'm both Confederate and Union. So the important thing here is we are forged in relationships. So that's why things happen and we get involved. Why patriotism is so big, and why during the Civil War, both North and South engaged because they saw a bigger thing going on and they were protecting their stuff. There was no such thing really as a federal government per se. It was all states that made up the United States. There was no federalization piece. That came on after the Civil War. The but the important thing there is to look at both northern and southern families looked at as their responsibility to their state to step up when they're called. So that's why Mississippi protected Mississippi, and that's why Ohio protected Ohio and fought in that fashion. So it's a big deal. You're called when you're serving when called. The second thing is we were Christian, and for the predominantly the Civil War is two Christian entities fighting each other. Now these are the same Christians that in 1858 they were fighting the Seminole Wars and the Mexican Wars. They all fought in union together. So from a faith standpoint, they were all one, and that's an important distinction because chaplains were given deference to in during the Civil War. They weren't sent to a prisoner of war camp for the most part. They were released and sent back to do the work of God. That becomes an important distinction that they have. But we all recognize that faith played a major part in the Civil War and in our heritage as Americans. The last piece here is probably most identified with uh, with General Hancock and General Armistead. During the Civil War at the Battle of Gettysburg, the image that you see is the image of General Hancock holding his friend, the Confederate General Armistead. Now, that in and of itself, they were both friends. What makes it even more interesting is that they were both Masonic brothers. So you have patriotism in the wars, you have their faith as Christians, and you also see their unity as brothers in the Masonic order. And those three things help drive relationships and also preserve the Union after the Civil War, because the Masonic Lodge did not change based on a northern or southern. They were the Masonic Lodge, and they had their jurisdictions. So it became a unity point. And that's why you have the depiction of General Armistead and General Hancock um, ministering to each other because they, first and foremost, they were friends. They were friends and brothers in the Masonic order. So those are the three things I want to take away from this. I want you to know that we are a patriotic people, and we have wars that drove us to serve. We were a Christian people, and still are, because we did incorporate our faith into our work in as soldiers, and finally we were Masons. And I myself come from a long line of Masons in that served in the Civil War, both North and South. And it's interesting to hear the stories and read the tales of how how a Mason brother helped another Masonic brother, during these times, especially when one is a POW. So there was some deference that is given to some of those POWs. Well, I hope this has been helpful. I want you to like, subscribe, and share, and recognize these things are things that we have. This is the legacy that we have as Americans. And these are the things that you wonder, what happened to the legacy that we had? Well, it's there. The first thing you need to do is join, whether it's joining, checking out the local church, or joining the military, or joining the Sons of the American Revolution, joining the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, Sons of Confederate Veterans, and so on. Look at joining an organization that remembers your heritage. Do some research on ancestry, or ask people to assist you to find out who you are, what your family is about. Because you are just the latest iteration of what your family has done over the years. Finally, consider joining the Masonic Lodge, because it's a brotherhood of men trying to make other men better. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you in the future videos. Take care and God bless. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this video. Comment, that'd be really cool.